When I was in middle school, I wore shirts from Forever 21 that looked normal from the front, but on the back said, "New York Summer Dreaming Pizza Lover Forever." I would wash my face with water and soap, could not tell you what foundation even was, and I think if I saw a cigarette in real life, I would start crying from fear. So you can imagine the surprise that I experienced the first time that I was peacefully walking through the mall, eternally saddened by Forever 21 not being there anymore, mind you, and I saw a child inhaling from a colorful AirPods case, wearing false eyelashes that could make Icarus wish his wings were made of the same material. This is not a rare sighting. Children acting like adults is nothing new. What's important to remember, though, is that they were not always like this. I know that may be hard to understand, but allow me to humanize them for you. I remember being in middle school and threatening to flee the country if a high schooler did as much as look at me. And I always thought that being interesting and fitting in with my peers was the highest priority. Although it might not be visible underneath the drunk elephant and Lululemon apparel, this new generation of preteens wants to fit in just like the generation of preteens before it. That is the string holding all of these 12-year-olds together across generations. Wanting to be seen as normal and avoiding embarrassment by any means necessary. Before I give insight into what I believe is the main culprit of the preteen extinction, I feel I must very quickly inform you on the changes that the preteen has experienced. The image of the preteen has changed so many times over so many years that reducing the concept to what we know today would not enlighten you on the importance of this phase. In the 2000s, preteens liked Paul Frank, MySpace, and magazines. In the 2010s, preteens liked Shane Dawson conspiracy videos, the Cinnamon Challenge, which I always thought should have been vetoed by the UN and deemed a breach of international law, and Omegle, which I also thought the UN should have probably looked into. The preteens of the 2020s are known for liking TikTok, overpriced coffee, and skincare that in reality won't care for their skin. If anyone listens to anything I say today, I think it should be this. Retinol serums were not made for 12-year-olds. I didn't want to include any pictures of real people to show you because everyone already does that. People love to take pictures of these girls and then bully them on the internet. These people are difficult and insane because that doesn't solve the issue, it fuels it. Although it did make me wonder, how do different people see these preteens' behaviors? Do people associate the preteen with Paul Frank, Glozell, or with Sephora? I decided to answer my question by interviewing some people. I decided to interview my brother, my friends, and a couple of adults on how old they think a preteen girl of the 2000s is versus a preteen girl of the 2020s. To do this, I searched online for a picture of a preteen girl from almost 20 years ago, and then the same for a preteen girl of today. I then showed these pictures to my participants, and both of the girls were 12 years old in their respective pictures. The mean predicted age of the preteen from the 2000s was 9 years old, while the mean predicted age of the preteen from the 2020s was 14. Although not largely significant in terms of how old the girls actually are, a 5-year difference between two people that in reality are the same age is substantial. By reviewing the results, it was easy to see that generally the older participants identified both girls with older ages, while the younger participants identified both girls with younger ages. This shows that the image of the preteen has indeed changed over the course of several generations. And now that we have identified that changes have indeed occurred, we can find out what the cause may be. In reality, there are many different causes, but I believe that one is present in overwhelming quantities, and that cause is self-awareness. Remember when I mentioned that rancid website Omegle? Well, there's a reason why that website was so popular. It was essentially a workshop on how to improve your social skills. Awkward kids who were scared of being seen as weird turned to Omegle in order to not be that way. And Omegle doesn't exist anymore, thank God, but it was something that young people utilized as a method of social interaction, the thing that they need and wish to master at the age of 12. Ever since I was a preteen, kids have been becoming more and more self-aware. This might seem counterintuitive considering my previous claim, that the preteen is dying out because they're acting older than they are instead of understanding how young they really are. But I believe that these two claims coexist. Preteens are more self-aware than ever, thus they are afraid to be embarrassing or seem weird and think about their existence more than any other preteens in history. So as a consequence, they want to eradicate this phase in their life by moving on to the next one, adulthood. It's a cycle that is hard to stop, especially with the ideals that society has created for these young people. Being silly and being a child is no longer one of these ideals, so why bother? Why continue being a child? I'm at the end of my childhood, and although I do think about it a lot, being insanely cringy and embarrassing was never the defining part of my being a kid. The defining part of being a kid was always things like sports day, trying your hardest not to laugh or make noise at a sleepover, making slime without activator 18 different ways, and you know it's not going to work. Granted, kids nowadays are also experiencing these things, but the issue is that they are experiencing them at younger and younger ages. Kids nowadays outgrow slime at 7 years old, and that's when my slime making career began. So what happens when kids outgrow everything? I hated being 12 years old. That's like the worst age I could think of. But there's a reason why being 12 was so horrific. It gives you humility. You have photographed evidence of a time in your life in which you're not young enough to be cute anymore, and you're not old enough to be pretty, and you like everything too much, and you hate everything too much, and it's such a weird time, but it is such an important time. So I encourage the 10, 11, 12-year-olds of the world to be weird. Don't be afraid of being cringy, because that is literally the only point of you being this age. Have terrible interactions that will keep you up at night. Make jokes that are not funny. Try to have fun at sports day, and be as embarrassing as humanly possible. Thank you.